Education works. You've heard me say it across the state for a lot of years. I believe that education is the difference maker in economic development in North Carolina and in America. For months, I've been traveling around the state, listening to many of you, our business friends and business advisors, and listen as you tell me about the strength of your business or the state's economy as it relates to education. Let me share just a few anecdotes with you. We started out here at the RBC Center with Tricia's leadership and Albert hosting a business roundtable. And from there, we've moved all over the state, seeking advice and input from our business leaders about what it is that you expect from the workforce in a 21st century economy. Gene Atkinson earlier this morning in front of the press reminded the press that we had a lot of things we could do differently and change, and that's what the new DPI looks like, that they're engaged on reforming education in a customized way so every individual student has an opportunity to be whatever he or she wants to be or can be. I listened to a man named Adam Monroe. Now, some of you all know Adam. He's president of Novozymes, one of North Carolina's leading companies. He volunteers for the Boys and Girls Club at the local club in his community. He talked to the Business Roundtable the other day, and he said that he had mentored a 6th grade child and a boy, and the boy came in one day after school and was real excited to talk to him about what he was doing at home. He had taken apart an old Xbox, and he was excited about that. He said he took it apart and he looked at all the pieces, and then he said, I sat down and looked at those pieces. Bob Eves, the North Carolina first gentleman, I just realized I didn't acknowledge you. I'll be in trouble when I go home tonight. If you haven't noticed, Bob and I dressed alike. I asked him this morning if that meant we were going steady. We didn't plan it, but y'all. All right, let me get back to my Adam. I've kissed up enough now. I can get back to my Adam story. Adam talked to us about this kid and said the kid stopped and said, you know, Mr. Monroe, I took it apart and I looked at the pieces and I thought, well, I can do something different with this. And so he took the system's laser system from the Xbox and installed it into his PlayStation, and he had a totally different machine. And Adam said, I was blown away, Bev. This was a kid who isn't a high flyer in his school courses, and he recognized that child's engineering talent, and he recognized that that kid could really have a future if he was doing things like this innovative in his own living room. And then he asked the kid, he said, how are you doing in science and math if you can do all this stuff? And he looked at Adam and he said, you know, I hate it. I'm having a real hard time. I can't find anybody to help me do my homework. That's the story of a kid who might be the next genius in our state. And after telling the story, Adam looked at us and he said, the thing that makes me the saddest about North Carolina is to realize that we might not invest in those children and those children's future. It's a real story. It's a real little boy and a real business leader, and you each have stories like that. And I just have to tell you that if the General Assembly, and I'm not asking any of you to take sides, look, I'm married to a Republican who saw God's hand and became an independent, so I live. He said, honey, I love you, but even I won't go that far. That's what he said to me at Christmas. But the bottom line is that I work well with members of different opinions and other parties. And this isn't a partisan argument that we're having in North Carolina. Rest assured, it is not partisan. This is an argument, a discussion we're having about the future of North Carolina, about whom we're going to be as a people and as a state, and what we believe in and what we value and where we want to put our limited resources. That's what this discussion is about. Do we want to keep on leading the South in America, or do we want to be literally in a race to the bottom? Because with the decisions that are being made downtown, we know for a fact that we're going to be 49th, but some of my friends are telling me we're going to be 50th. That makes my stomach hurt. I don't know about you. At the same meeting, St. Marshall, our good friend, the leader of AT&T, a great North Carolina woman, mother of 4 children, told me that, she said, Bev, when we moved here 4 years ago, When I decided to come to North Carolina and lead this enterprise, I thought about it, and I thought, me in the South, and then I thought, yeah, I can do this, because it was clear that this state's leaders, not me, some of you all, had spent decades focusing on education. She told me that she knew as a business leader because she could look at the quality of the employees all across AT&T's platform. She said, I also know as a parent because my kids are in public school. And it's hard when you work as hard as Cent works and have 4 kids in school. But she did it all. And then you had Jim Goodman, who is never hesitant to tell you exactly how he feels about anything. The CEO of Capital Broadcasting Company, a great North Carolina leader. He simply said in this meeting, we are cutting the future. Let me say it again. Jim Goodman, quote, we're cutting the future. Our future depends on how good a job we do with our young people. What we're doing simply is cutting the product development budget. The product, because people, little kids, community college students, that's the product development for North Carolina. To me, there is no spin that can hide this simple fact. People can say whatever they want to say about this education budget. You and I know in your gut and your soul that education is the difference maker. It's the difference maker for North Carolina today, yesterday, and it will be the difference maker tomorrow. If we undereducate our young men and women, how do you build your workforce? This morning I've had another conversation with a company that this is one yesterday and one today, for you in the press corps who think I'm repeating the same story but giving it a different date. This morning I have just left the Department of Commerce where we met with a business leader. A high-tech company, maybe someday 5,000 employees, right now 1,500. We want that company in North Carolina. He likes North Carolina. He asked me the question, Howard, tell me about the workforce. We need high-tech workers. We need to know that we're going to have engineers and thinkers and innovators in our company. Jobs and education intersect. There is no way around it. That's why you're members of NCBC. With the budget that's on my desk today, I wonder what's going to happen to North Carolina. Watching the General Assembly cut something as critical to the backbone of this state as Smart Start and Mort 4, decimating public schools across the state, moving to privatize pieces of the public school system, doing what they're doing with workforce in the community college, backing away from the investment in higher ed that has built North Carolina. It makes me sad for the state and for our people because they elected us to do better, and you're here today because you believe in doing better. It's like somebody just decided that they were going to clear cut all of North Carolina's longleaf pines for a quick little profit. That's what it's analogous to. They might get the cash that they're looking for short term without thinking about the long-term damage, the generational damage that's going to happen to our people. And by the way, as an aside on the budget, not related to education, killing forests may not be too far removed from what this budget actually does, if you want to know the truth. That they've reduced land and water conservation programs by 74%, including an 89% cut to the Clean Water Management Trust Fund, the thing that has propelled North Carolina as we become the 7th largest state in America to having some land and some air and some clean water left when we urbanize our whole state. That's just one of the areas under attack. If you get tired of hearing me talk about education, look at what's going on with the mentally ill, or look at what's going on with aging people in our state when we know our state is graying as fast as any place in America. This is a budget that does unusual investments, or lack of thereof, for the people of North Carolina. Highways will be less safe. They'll tell you they're not, but they are. Our capacity to respond to emergencies. The day I kicked off Hurricane Emergency Month, June 1st, was the day I saw in the budget a 15% cut to how we respond to emergencies in North Carolina. Now, you go figure. Ideological, dangerous, my words, not yours, but you ought to think about it. You ought to think about it. This is your state. This is your workforce. These are our people. The thing that has set us apart traditionally from southern states, and Bob and I have had the privilege, as the leader of the Southern Governors Association, in traveling around the South and being in fabulous governors' company. A lot of Republicans. I didn't think I'd like Haley Barbour. I like Haley Barbour. I enjoy being with him. He's a bright, talented leader, and we enjoyed being in his state. But I come home, and I'm always glad to be back to North Carolina because we're different than Mississippi or Alabama or so many other states. We've invested in our people forever, and everybody in this state who works hard in school, it ain't a free ride, but if you'll just do your part, you've got a shot at being somebody in North Carolina. That's the glory of this state. And the glory of this state is business leaders like you who've moved here and grown here and seeded innovation here, and you've allowed North Carolina to become a transactional 21st century state that's propelled by high flyers and quality thinkers. That's who we are. We aren't farmers necessarily. We're agro-biotech farmers. We're doing it the 21st century way. We look different. We may be textile workers, but we're automated robotic textile workers. In manufacturing, advanced manufacturing looks nothing like manufacturing of the 20th century. We've changed who we are. One way, an investment in our people. This budget, Republican leaders will tell you over there, there aren't going to be any cuts to teachers and teachers' assistants. Did you see the story Thursday about the teacher's assistant that was one-on-one with a kid who, I've forgotten, autistic, dyslexic. He was a one-on-one teacher's assistant. He said, I've made a difference in this kid. This kid's life is different. He can do better. He really has a future. And he pulled a piece of paper out of his pocket. He said, this is my pink slip. He says, how do you think I feel knowing that I've invested this much in the child, and now somebody's telling me I have to walk away from the child? How is the child going to understand? Somebody just gave up on his future. I call it a charade. We're talking big talk about what we're doing in this state right now. It's not the truth. It's just simply not the truth. They've renamed cuts and pushed them into different places. Let's let the locals do it. A cut's a cut. A cut's a cut. It doesn't matter who does it. Making us right to the bottom. I don't believe they're fooling anybody. I don't believe you can cover up that old ugly with a little teeny fig leaf. I don't believe it'll work. I believe people in this state are going to watch folks being laid off or fired. I'm being told 9,000 positions. They're not my numbers. They're other numbers. It's the biggest layoff that I'm being told has ever happened in North Carolina's history to teachers and teachers' assistants and administrators. It's happening on our watch. You going to let it happen? $565 million in cuts to public schools. The timing couldn't be worse, you all. You heard me say we've just come from an announcement where we said North Carolina is getting better. We're above the national average in high school graduation rates. That says something about who we are as a people. Why would we go backwards on those kind of investments? A more than 15% improvement from 1998 to 2008. 15% in 10 years. Now you go tell me we ought to sell DPI and make it condominiums. I don't believe that's the right answer for the people in North Carolina. I just simply don't believe that. We are moving ahead. We are a race to the top state. I proposed a sensible way to balance the budget. I'm not a tax and spend Democrat. I'm really not. I've listened to people across this state. I've cut government. I've reset the state. You're looking at the governor who was the first one in the history to furlough state employees and teachers. I did that. We've been AAA bond rated under the watch that I've led. Every evaluator in the country is talking about how good we do in North Carolina. The unemployment rate is too high, but everybody from the evaluators, the outside economists, say to me, Governor, you're not going to change the unemployment rate wholly in North Carolina. It was above, it was not great when you started because you all have got a structurally uneducated population in North Carolina. Folks who dropped out of school, who've worked in these low-wage jobs, who are now in their 50s and 60s and 70s. The future is limited for them, but for their daughters and sons and grandchildren and great-grandchildren. In North Carolina, there should be no limits. There should be no limits to opportunity for everybody in North Carolina. This is a battle for the heart and soul of North Carolina. You're looking at a woman whose dad and mom didn't graduate from high school. They had the good sense to encourage me to be more than they were And I was blessed to live in a state that believed in the public school system, or I wouldn't be here today. This is our turn at bat. We are the adults in charge. You are the business leaders of North Carolina. Bottom line is that your future workforce is sitting in seats somewhere in America's classrooms or the world's classrooms. And you want all of those classrooms to be high-tech, to be capable to provide this country with a 21st century educated workforce. That is how we compete and how we literally win the future. Thank you.